This tank is one of the most iconic vehicles in World of Tanks, and it is because it is well known for being one of the greats on World of Tanks on PC. But is this tank as good on console, and can it perform to the utmost ability like you're used to seeing the other broken tier 10s? And well, we're going to find that out in today's video. We're going to have a look at how this tank performs in the game, as well as having a look at some of the statistics that make this tank very good that you want to know for when you get to tier 10 if you aren't already and you come up against one of these, and how you can take them out pretty effectively. So first things first, let's have a look at the statistics of the vehicle so we know exactly what this thing can do. Essentially, this tank is much like the Chieftain, very good at being able to pen things. Its standard pen through 270mm, which is very good, and it gets 322 on its premium round. So you're basically capable of dealing with most vehicles that you will ever come up against when playing in this vehicle, and lower tier vehicles are going to hate playing up against you because you just don't bounce, which is brilliant. But combine that with the fact that this gets 440 alpha damage, which is significantly better than its American counterparts in the E5, and that considering you also get decent accuracy of 0.33 when you set up the tank like we've got it. And of course, if we add in a commando, we can make this even better, and we might as well do it just for consistency to see what the top level of this tank can perform at. Now, 0.28 accuracy, we have 10 degrees of gun depression, we have 3,375 damage per minute, we have a top forward speed of 46 kilometers an hour, 2,200 hit points, and decent view range as well of 476. Now, I am running this vehicle with vertical stabilizers to improve that accuracy, which is why we've got such good accuracy. I'm running it with ventilation, which could potentially be dropped for advanced optics for the potential for assistance damage in this thing. It is, you know, really down to how you want to play it, but I'm going for the extra reload since we're probably going to be up close and personal with people, and the little bit of an advantage in that regard is going to be nice. And then, of course, going for the 10% DPM buff, which is almost a must on pretty much all vehicles that you'll play in the game. But really nice to see. And, of course, I'm interested to see whether or not you think that this thing is as good as I'm showing it to be. But we're running this thing with a decent amount of premium ammunition. I was going to try and go for the 3 marks at some point, so we want to make sure we're not bouncing off of anything, but granted, you really do not need to fire that much premium, and in fact, I usually run out of my standard rounds and then end up on those premium rounds by mistake, or at least with no other option. So I could probably drop it down, and in fact, we'll do that now, just so that we don't need that many anyway. Now, good thing about this is its armor. Now you can see here the armor model of this tank is very good. 350 on the kind of mantler area, you've got 260 on these angled plates, and 215, which is very well angled, which means that you can bounce quite a lot. But it does have a cupola which can be penned, and also on that left hand side of this vehicle, when you're looking at it like this, the orange portion of this, which you see on the left, as you can see right here, that can be penned by people with super high penetration and with heat rounds. So you've got to be a little bit careful up against things like the Jaegeru, who will just go straight through your turret, which kind of sucks. But that's why you kind of keep moving your turret like this to avoid being hit in that location and potentially bouncing around if you've got no other option, or potentially just pulling back away from where the Jaegeru can hit you. Now, hull armor wise, got pretty decent upper plate. It can bounce a few things, same as the sides. If you've got heat rounds coming at you, you've got the tracks to absorb some of those. And of course, you've also got these side plates that act as spaced armor as well, that you can see here highlighted, that avoid some of those HE and heat rounds. And yeah, it can just basically absorb some of those rounds coming in. And that makes the armor model of this thing pretty decent. Is it overpowered? No, but it's certainly very good. And if you get hulled down with this thing can be a monster. And with the 10 degrees of gun depression, this thing can tear apart its opponents very nicely. And that's why you also have to factor in that 440 alpha with a reload of 7.8 seconds is also pretty nice. you can come away with a huge amount of damage that hopefully you'll understand why, and yeah, how to kind of take this thing out as we move through the gameplay, and I'll highlight some of the weak points, how we ended up getting taken out in the games that we showcase, and we've got one of the better ones for you guys to have a look at first. So I guess we've looked over the statistics of the vehicle, got a good idea of how this thing plays. It's almost like a British medium tank that gets armor, and of course let's see how it actually plays in the game and see whether those statistics really tie up with how you expect it given the stats and what sort of things you can do to take it out. Now our first game starts on Sevorogorsk, which is a pretty decent map for a tank like this, and so essentially what we're going to do, being the top tiers in the match, we're playing up against tier 8s in this game. There aren't a huge amount of tier 10s in this game, so it's not a full tier 10 game by any means, so we've really got to perform at the highest level if we want to try and win this for our team, since we are relied upon by those lower tier vehicles in the game. So that's exactly what we're going to try and do, and we're going to try and take the heavy corner over here rather than try and cross and go over to the area in the 2 line where a lot of players will try and duke it out in heavy tanks. Now I don't want to overcommit on this flank. You can see by the minimap, not a lot of movement going on in the team, and I wouldn't have that much support if someone did just decide to YOLO. So I'm not going to go in just yet, and we're going to see why you don't want to be doing that throughout this game. And obviously if you've been watching any of my videos for any length of time, you don't want to be encircled by multiple opponents and get sausage sandwiched. So, you know, make sure that you don't overcommit at the beginning, and you're going to do much better overall. You'll stop ending up getting taken out so quickly in the games and preserving those hit points till when you need to use them in the later game, where you can, you know, trade them for extra bits of damage that you wouldn't have been able to do if you did lose that hit points at the beginning. Now, from what we see over here, there isn't a whole lot of tanks coming over this side. It appears like the majority of their team have gone over on the 2 and 3 line, and of course now we can move into position to try and catch some people out who are going to be moving over here rather slowly, like the AMX 5100 hopefully, and maybe he'll get a few shots of damage taken and we'll get some assistance. Now we don't know, but we can always hit and hope. Now, given the fact that the AMX 5100 is being quite passive, we are going to try and deal with this Oho, who ends up hitting us with his HE round. Yeah, not ideal. But AMX 5100 overcommitting over the hill, not the best idea, then decides to go outside on in front of a Death Star. Yeah, not the greatest way to throw away your hit points, but either way, we'll take the extra shot of damage that we got from him. Now, with 879 damage on the clock, you know, 2.5 minutes in basically into the game, it isn't the best result, but don't worry, because there's plenty more where that damage came from, and in fact is one of the highest damage games overall that I've had in a long time, mainly because recently I've just been reviewing tier 8 premiums that Wargaming release, and yeah. So we've not had a whole lot of time to actually grind out some of these tier 10s and try and go for 3 marks, so it'd be nice to actually do that when Wargaming toned down the development of some of these premiums. But either way, we managed to bounce the FV in there if you've been paying attention, which is nice, and that shows you the upper plate of this thing. Most tanks probably would have got penned by that one, but yeah, luckily we managed to avoid that shell. The FV is still going to be there, there's a surprise, and then we end up bouncing another round from the FV. So you can see armor holds up quite nicely. We double checked that that was the FV before pulling around again, because, you know, in the top right it says how much damage you block, 2,300. That would be 2 FV hits onto us, so of course that means we bounce another FV, so he's not going to be able to hit us. Now then, the game's starting to become a little bit better. We've done 2,700 damage, but the FE is the real problem over in this location and can be a real nuisance. But in this regard, we need to start dealing a bit of damage because the game isn't looking all too hot right now, and we're down by 2 tanks. There's a lot of tanks that the enemy team have got into nice positions. They're taking the majority of the map, getting into just annoying places that our team are going to struggle to deal with. Now you can see here just 3 shots into the tier 8s. It's perfect. It is literally what you want to be doing in these sorts of games is farming up these low tier boys and of course finishing them off. Now the Oho, of course, I don't know what he's doing, but deciding to try and push his way through, but we're going to go for some damage on this 53 TP. Now he is doing what you probably don't want to do, and that is pushing an FV 4005. Now I don't know why he decided to do this. It's not a great idea, and usually it ends up with you back in the garage pretty quickly, so I wouldn't recommend it. But either way, we've just been farming up this 53 TP. This is exactly what you want, using a bit of that gun depression to fire off a couple of shells, and yeah, getting quite lucky with that shot to actually hit his cupola. So 4,964 damage, pretty good. But at this point, the enemy team are going to start moving from the other side, and I guess what we see here is the problem with this tank is it isn't super fast. Now, yes, it's faster than the majority of heavy tanks, especially when you look at how much effective armor this thing has. It's got pretty decent mobility, but at the end of the day, it's a heavy, it doesn't get up to that top speed very quickly, and you can be limited when it comes to that. Now, we find ourselves up against an Emil 1. I'm hoping that we can deal a shot of damage to this guy. He needs to go. And then the FV actually finishes him off, which is nice. Maybe it would have been better for the FV to save his shot, because we have no idea what else is going to rock up. But either way, I'm not going to complain. Hopefully he reloads before the next opponent decides to come in. But we've got an AVRE to try and deal with. Yes, the overpowered tier 10. The literal overpowered tier 10. I guess whilst talking about overpowered tier 10s, do I think that this tank is overpowered? Short answer, no. I actually think that on console, this tank is pretty well balanced to a degree. Is it strong? Is it good? Is it competitive? Yes, absolutely. Is it overpowered? Probably not. I think there is some negatives. It was nerfed when it came into the console version as opposed to the PC, which is why you see this thing not being so outrageously, outlandishly broken like you see on the PC version. So there's that. And of course, you just have to bear in mind that, you know, when you get hold down like this, it is very strong, but as soon as you do get kind of out of there, yeah, it's not particularly great. Now, we ammo rack the AVRE, so it's a big middle finger to him. Thank you. Love to see it. But the enemy team are starting to push now, and with the 780 getting it pumped by the FV here, hopefully we can finish him off. Now, this is probably where I make the biggest misplay of the game. Now, we have to start finishing these boys off, because if we don't, we're going to get surrounded. It's going to be pretty much curtains straight away, and at this point there's an Emil 1 on full health, which isn't good, so hopefully we can get a few shots into this guy. Maybe we should come down and try and help this guy out, but there's a 780 we need to worry about who could potentially get some shots on us. It's just not looking all too good. I can't overcommit on any one flank. There's an artillery who's going to be boring, and there you go, he misses us for a load of damage. Oh, it's not looking good, especially when we've done 7,500 damage. I was, yeah, not particularly too happy about getting pumped by the arty, but we have to be careful because this Emil is going to be a real problem as well. So if we can maybe deal with this guy, we can come away with a win, but we're not guaranteed to, and that tank is actually pretty strong if it can come up from behind you, so you've got to be a little bit careful. But with the 780 pushing up, he gets finished off by the FE, which is perfect, but now we're starting to get pumped in the back. This is where I make probably the biggest misplay of this game. Rather than just trying to finish off this Emil 1, I turn around to try and deal with the T54. This is the, you know, when you're sweating and you're thinking, oh, I really want to win this game, I could potentially do it, it could be a collar balance, and then you just start making idiot plays, and yeah, I end up turning for the T54. The Emil 1's behind me, it's just curtains, and we lose our engine, and yeah. Through it, right at the end, when we could have genuinely won. I feel like we could have done it, but at the end of the day, we gave it a good go. Could the team have helped out a little bit within this game? Yes. Could I have played better? 100%. And I think we ended up losing that game because I didn't commit enough in that kind of end or late end / late mid game to win the game. But we still picked up 8,400 damage with 1,000 assists, and if you were going for marks of excellence, that would be a very nice one to have to go up a couple of percent. And of course, hopefully that gave an indication as to the utmost ability of the T95 FV4201. Let's have a look at another replay though before we finish this one off. And that replay comes in the form of Steppes. Now Steppes is one of the maps I actually really enjoy playing on World of Tanks. I think it's quite a nice one. It's got a little bit of everything for everyone to kind of play, whether you're a light tank, whether you're a medium, whether you're a heavy, TD, artillery, but either way, it has a little bit of something. You can play well regardless of the class. It's not like you are a light tank on Himmelsdorf, you know, where you just think, oh, for God's sake, the matchmaker screwed me here. But that's what's nice about Steppes. And if you play right, you can do well in any vehicle, which is what I love about the map design on some of the ones that we have on console. Some of the others, not so much. But either way, moving forward in this game, what are we doing? Well, we're going to try and take the eastern flank on this map. Now, usually the heavy tank corner would be D1 and D2, where you kind of fight it out on the corner. But I decided to try something a little bit different and use the gun depression to deal with some of the mediums on this flank and maybe, just maybe, start to pump up some of these opponents. Now we start with an Eradicator, which is the tier 8 Carnarvon in the game. Now what's great about this is, yeah, he doesn't have any armor against 270 pen, which is always good. The only problem is of course he can get hold down now, and we also have a medium tank to try and contend with, the T62A, who's got into a decent position, but I mean, decent to some level. And then we finish off the Barask, who's obviously pushed out way too much. I don't know why he ended up re-peaking it when he was detected, but either way, we'll take the damage. Thank you very much, Mr. Barask. Now we go for the blind fire on the T62A. You never know, he might have gone back up into his little bush, but we're in a bit of a sticky situation. We are getting spotted by what I believe is the T62A. We don't know for sure, but I'm suspecting it's him. He's in our view range. It could potentially be him, and we've got to be a little bit careful. And you see me here just blind firing. You might as well blind fire in your games when you are playing, because you never know. You might get a free shot of damage, and if you're not actually going to shoot in the next couple of seconds, or you know, in the next 7 seconds, it's basically worth doing it every single time, at least, unless you're on so low hit points that, you know, or it's so low ammo count that it's going to mean that you aren't going to be able to finish or carry a game. But how actually often is that? Probably not very often. But we are trying to kind of get towards their base and start dealing with some of these opponents that I'm hoping we can get a little bit of damage on. Now the Eradicator is still there. We actually end up spotting him. Maybe someone on our team in a different location can get that crossfire and finish him off before this game ends. There's a T95, the same tank as we were in, over there. Now he is giving the side of his turret, and then I don't know where I was aiming in that shot. Terrible by me, but of course we can see the lower plate here, which is what we're going to go for. Easy as you like. And in fact, he's getting absolute pumped. And we're going to aim just slightly to the right. He looked like he was having difficulty. Maybe we'll get another shot off. We don't manage to. It goes flying high. A CC who's over cresting the ridge. Can we get one into the lower plate? Yes, we can. And that's the power of these APCR rounds, because they are so quick. You can get these really nice shots where some of the other tanks with slower rounds, it would just take too long for the shell to hit before you actually get that damage. Now, the Dragon on the enemy team, it's an easy pen straight through the front of that one, and maybe we can get another one off using the damage per minute this tank has. But unfortunately, he goes undetected. And now at this point, I'm thinking, do I push up? Do I go back? I don't really know. So we decide to just wait a second, see if anyone can spot for our team. And then we decide to move slightly over to the right and maybe go back to defend the base, depending on where the enemy team are looking like they're going to push from. Now, the SU-130 gets spotted, and at this point I'm thinking, maybe I should just push this side, but I'm wary, and this is the sort of things that can end up getting you kind of removed in the game. It's lack of action, and sometimes you just have to be decisive. So I decide I don't want to be faffing around for too long, because the game is going to end quickly and our teammates are going to get put into a horrible position if we don't act So I decide to make a bit of an aggressive play. Now, I don't know if this is going to work out 100%. Of course, we do get spotted, I'm not surprised, but in doing this, we can basically push up to this location directly in front of us, where hopefully we can spot for the team. And I was hoping that they'd actually sit back, the teammates, to get a bit of damage on some of these people, but unfortunately they ended up pushing quite aggressively, and that kind of is not ideal. Now, I'm trying to go for the shot on the CC, and then he, you know, flicks onto us and pens us. Yeah, thank you, game. Either way, you know, with 2,100 damage done, 1,500 assists, it's not awful, but it's still not. There's still a lot left to be desired, and this is what can happen in the T95. It doesn't have the best damage per minute in the game. It doesn't have the best speed, and if you find yourself kind of worried about what's going to happen, you can end up just getting removed quite quickly, or just being inactive and not getting the damage that you're hoping for within the games. And that's kind of where I feel this tank is somewhat lackluster when it comes to performing very well in the game at the top level. Now, is it good? 100% it's good. It's a brilliant tank, and I think that people will enjoy it, but unfortunately it is a premium, and you're going to have to spend an absolute fortune if you want to pick this thing up, which is why I wanted to do a video on it, because you guys should probably know how to deal with these things, which is essentially the cupola, you've got the hull armor, and just out-traversing this thing is going to probably be the best opportunity for you to deal with what this tank can do. The game is pretty stale here. I'm trying to use the turret armor, but there's not a lot going on. There's teammates both behind me and to the side, but we can't help them because the I7's there. I'm going to try and push towards where these the enemy team are, like this Jaeger, who maybe we can get a shot into the cupola. He bounces off of us, which is nice, and that gives us a little bit of opportunity, but the CC is now just going to come flying over. We go for the tracking shot, hoping that someone can get a shot into him, putting the gun in the air to avoid being hit in the cupola, potentially. We then go for the re-tracking shot. It high rolls for 516, but it's not enough here, and we are still in a bit of a mess. The enemy team are now just pushing our CC, which isn't good. We then get penned by a Gorilla 15, who's just YOLO'd it up over the ridge. And then I just want to get rid of this Draugen, but unfortunately we can't see him. I was hoping we would. And the Gorilla just looks like he's going to just stonewall it into us. And here you go, the YOLO Wagon Fest is coming in. Does an aim, flicks me on the move, which is kind of disgusting. I mean, I'm not surprised it penned and actually hit, but at the same time, you could see there that as soon as they get a shot into the upper plate of this thing, you do get taken out pretty quickly, and the hull armor is awful for the most part when you're coming up against those TDs, those Jaegerus and stuff. It can pull bounces like you saw, especially when you're at decent ranges, but as soon as you're getting close, then it's just game over. And hopefully that gameplay showed a bit more of a general replay of what this tank can do and the sort of games that I think most people will be having in this tank. It is a very strong tank, a very competitive tank, and one that is very enjoyable to play, but once again is very expensive to actually purchase. So keep an eye on it, make sure that you enjoy it, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video, which is coming soon. Don't forget to like it if you did, and of course suggest anything that you want to see next in the comment section, and I'll hopefully get round to doing it for you, whatever that may be. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.